What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tsla, and the overall markets. I'm going to give you guys a very important update that came out involving the tariffs, not to mention some new pieces of news coming out for the markets moving forward. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, and the offer ends very soon at the end of March. Anyways, as far as the market is going, as you guys know, the market was pumping on Friday, nearing all-time highs for SPY. The QQQ was also pumping a few points away from all-time highs. We saw this nice rally on Nvda, on Tesla, and in the overall market. Why did the market rally? We had a decent PCE inflationary report, and we got good earnings from Apple. So the market was pushing. Then we got this news from the US's press secretary. She came out and mentioned that Donald Trump would be imposing tariffs on February 1st on Canada, Mexico, and China, right? And as soon as the news came out, the market dumped. And if anything, it continued to dump during the after hours, and I still think there's more potential for it to dump even more. Why do I say that? Because I gave you guys a warning about something, and that warning is starting to come into reality. So let's talk about what's going on. Why on earth are we seeing more countries retaliating, and what this means for us moving forward? So what's happening? One thing that's worth mentioning is that Mr. Trump has argued that there are massive trade deficits, and to create fairness, he wants to increase tariffs. He wants these other countries to start paying these tariffs because he believes that this could help reduce, if not eliminate, federal income taxes. But he also mentioned that in order to achieve this, he would argue that there's going to be some short-term pain, right? Elon Musk has said that. Many of these different people involved have all said that. I showed you guys the sources in my second to last video where Elon Musk and Trump are all saying that. So yes, there's going to be short-term pain. We all could agree upon that. But if you don't know exactly why, let me go over why for the short term. And then I'm going to break down exactly what this means for us moving forward. So please remember that Canada, Mexico, and China make up nearly half of all U.S. trade. Please remember that this is according to the Council of Foreign Relations. Half of our trade comes from them, so we are very dependent on them. All three of them combined, I mean. And then they're very dependent on us. Chiefly, Canada and Mexico are very dependent on us. China is not as dependent on the U.S. But please remember that we depend on them for crude oil, for car production, for chips, for computers, and all these different products, even groceries. Okay. So which imports are going to be impacted the most? Please know that cars, a large percentage of our car production is involved with Canada and Mexico. Crude petroleum is going to be very impacted by this because of Canada, which supplies the Midwest of the US for the most part with petroleum. Then we have phones being impacted by this, especially because of China, computers, and a bunch of different things like this. If anything, we're going to be looking for a lot of changes right over here. A 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico would raise production costs for the US automakers, adding $3,000 to the price for many of these vehicles. On top of this, grocery costs would likely go up too. Why is that? Because Mexico is the US's biggest source of fresh produce, supplying more than 60% of the US's vegetable imports and nearly half of all fruit and nut imports. So we're very dependent on Mexico. Mexico provides us with cheap costs and when it comes to produce and grocery prices. So this is going to have a big effect on us. On top of this, don't forget that these countries are going to be impacted a lot as well. Canada is very dependent on the US. Out of all their exports, 78% go to the US. And then when it comes to others out there, such as like Mexico, out of all their exports, 80% go to the US. So when you increase tariffs like this, you may de-incentivize them to trade as much with the US. They may start to look for other countries as well. So this could have a big effect on supply chains in the US, if anything. On top of this, when you look at more data, I'm going to come all the way down here. You guys can see that when it comes to China, they're not as dependent on the US. Why is that? Because only 15% of all their exports go to the US and 85% go to other countries around the world. That's the reason why Trump is, once again, being a little bit different with China. He wants to increase it by about 10% for the tariffs. So if anything, here's the thing about this. Okay, maybe every individual one of them is not like that massive, but when you combine them together, almost half our trade is from these three. So they're the three biggest trade partners of the US. We depend a lot on them combined. Okay. So what does this mean, at least moving forward for us? This is going to be affecting all kinds of industries, from steel production, petroleum, gas prices, and the list goes on. And Donald Trump has argued that, look, yes, these countries are going to basically be paying more in tariffs. But this is going to help increase the governmental revenue, which could help offset the risks, help create more jobs, and do things just like that. So the problem is, and there's good and bad things that come from this, in all honesty. The cons are, and I already went over studies that suggested this. I'm not going to go over every detail in this video, but this is going to be negative for GDP. It could contract between 0.4 and 1%. Higher inflation. Inflation is going to likely go up for the short term. This doesn't necessarily mean that prices will go down later on. It just means that the rate at which prices go up will increase for the next maybe 3 to 6 months. And then as time goes on, inflation should hopefully slow down thanks to higher interest rates and the Fed. But prices will remain elevated, though. That's the thing you have to remember about this. Prices are going to continue to go up for decades to come, guys. They're not going to be coming down. So just that's the honest, uncomfortable truth. And then I also mentioned in my previous videos that other countries may start to increase tariffs back on the US. I had this written out for the past 2 days. This may hurt American businesses. They may want to move away from Canada. It may cause their prices to go up. It may hurt their profits and a bunch of different factors like this. It could lead to like bankruptcies. So a lot of different things. The good thing about this is that the government is going to make more revenue, which they could use to hopefully try to reduce federal income tax. This could lead to more fairness, according to Trump. That's debatable. And then negotiation tactics to get these countries to try to, do more things that we want them to do. If Trump continues to threaten more tariffs, maybe Canada could say that we're going to do something differently to try to stop that. And, it could be used for negotiation. But the question is, will the US government make enough money and revenue to really offset the risks to the GDP to help Americans during times of higher inflation by reducing taxes? Will it be worth it? That's up to you guys to determine, right? I went over all of this before, but now there's one more problem. So the problem is the market's already dipping, starting to price in the negative effects to GDP, higher inflation, some fear because of that. But I mentioned to you all that other countries may also start to increase tariffs back on the US, causing the costs to go even higher. So the news came out yesterday that Justin Trudeau, who is the Prime Minister of Canada, he has announced that Canada is going to be imposing 25% tariffs in a trade war with the US. Keep in mind, guys, when it comes to the US's tariffs on Canada, we're charging 25%, of course, but not for all items. It's going to be 10% for petroleum, and also for oils and natural gases. So it's a little different. However, despite that, Canada has come out and they are retaliating. Justin Trudeau has come out and he's answered and responded by saying that they now want to increase tariffs to 25% on American goods. This is going to range from beer to wine and many other things like this. It's not all American goods, just about 155 Canadian dollars worth or $106.6 billion worth. This will be affecting, appliances, sports goods, beers, wines, and the list goes on. So, and this is only the beginning. That's like the first issue that I see. This is only the beginning because Mexico is now coming out and they're saying they want to do the same thing. Mexico also wants to increase tariffs in the US. They're trying to retaliate. So it's just going back and forth, guys. It's pretty wild. So please keep that in mind. So what does this mean for the markets? Well, here's the issue. Okay. For the long term, you guys can determine if it's worth it or not. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it is. I'm trying to be completely unbiased when I say this. Okay, there's so many good things and bad things that could come from this depending on how you want to look at it. It's very debatable. But for the short term, there's going to be pain. The short term is going to be plagued with higher inflation. There's going to be negative effects to the GDP. This is affecting the U.S.'s diplomacy with these countries. There's tensions rising, and the list goes on. This is going to be affecting American businesses and American livelihoods. So there's a lot of fear right now. What makes things a little worse is now that these countries are trying to, enter this trade war, it's making things worse because now the costs are going to be even higher because now they're charging more for American goods. So if Mexico joins in on this, which I think very soon they probably will, with Canada joining in, it's making things even worse for the markets. And I think that this is leading to even more fears, which could drive things even lower. So that's the honest gist of it so far. Not the best of news, at least for the time being. Like I said before, Elon Musk and Donald Trump and many people from his team have all announced that there's going to be some short-term pain. They're arguing it's going to be worth it for the long term. That's up to you guys to decide. But I just want to say that the short-term pain is what's going to cause more fear for the markets. So, but tomorrow it's going to be February 3rd, 2025. At 9:45 a.m., we have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI. At 10 o'clock a.m., we have the ISM manufacturing numbers as well, which could cause some volatility. So look for volatility tomorrow for the first 15 and 30 minutes of market open. Then just know that in the morning, we have Palantir announcing earnings. On Tuesday, we have PayPal AMD, Alphabet, and Snap also announcing earnings. On Wednesday, we have Uber and Walt Disney announcing earnings alongside Ford. And then on Thursday, we have Amazon announcing their earnings. So get ready for that. Lastly, the market is at neutral. I think it might get a little closer to fear as time goes on. Momentum is still at fear. We'll see if this shifts even lower, causing more fear. We'll see what happens to the put to call option ratio. This is at greed right now. We'll have to see if this climbs even higher. If it continues to climb, this could be a sign that there's more puts being bought, at least for the markets. And volatility is neutral. We'll see what the VIX ends up doing as it's trying to hold support. With that being said, let's focus on the charts now. What do I think is happening? Well, honestly, guys, the overall trend of the market is bullish. When I say it's bullish, it's because of the fact that that could lead to something else. But the issue that I'm seeing is the fact that despite the fact that the long term is bullish, the market's technically on a much larger uptrend. The short term is looking a little bit different. The problem with the short term is that we are looking bearish. I hope that's as clear as possible. Long term of Tesla, Nvda, and all these is bullish. Short term is looking a little bit more bearish. So as far as SPY is going, we're losing our 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. That's around this 600 area. On the daily charts, we're also seeing us lose. We're technically just around our 20 EMA. If we lose 598.96, I'm expecting us to dip closer to like 595. I think we might be dipping a bit more. So to me, all this fear, especially because Canada now wants to increase tariffs in the US, may lead to a bit more downside. If SPY reclaims 600, we're looking for 603 as our target. If we can't hold above 600, we're looking for 598, then 595-ish, very close to the 595s. So right now, the chart is looking weak with all this negative news. I think we do favor a little bit more downside. We might be dipping to the mid 590s before we start to see some buyers defend. So please be careful. Unless we lose 595, then we could be dumping. But we have 590, then we have another gap to fill at 584 on SPY in case that fails us. But I just want to be very clear that for the short term, we're favoring downside. Might be a little bit more downside coming all the way down towards the mid 590s, and we'll have to see what happens after that. For the QQQ, we had a high up here. We came down, made a lower high. We want to see if we could reclaim essentially 523 to bounce. If we can't reclaim that, we're looking for 518 as our first support, followed by our 200 EMA at 515. My gut tells me this might be dipping closer to 515, looking at the bearish looking trend right now, especially because of the fact that Canada is now retaliating. So I think that this might be favoring a little bit more downside just for the time being. So please be very, very mindful of this. We might see a little bit more sellers step in. Unless we reclaim 523, I favor the downside. I think we might be dipping to 515 or below. If that fails us, we're looking for a move all the way down to 510 and then 507. So keep that in mind. For the Russell, we got a big rejection. We lost our 50 EMA. We want to see this hold 225, excuse me. If not, we could be dumping all the way down close to 222.5 and then 220 flat. So I think the odds favor downside a little bit more. ES is currently at 60.65 at the time I'm recording this. There's going to be a risk of this dipping closer to about 60.39, and if that fails us, I think we dip closer to 6,000 flat. So be careful, guys. You might see ES dip a little bit more. For NQ, if this could reclaim 21,700-ish, we could try to bounce. If we can't, we're at risk of retesting 21,500 flat, eventually all the way down to about 21,360. I think this is favoring downside for the 21,300s, so please be very careful. Bitcoin is dipping right now. This is another indicator that the market is showing some fear. Bitcoin's currently at about 97,000. We'll have to see if we can reclaim 100,000 or not. If not, this could dip closer to about this previous resistance becoming support at 95,000. There's a risk of Bitcoin dipping more, so please be very, very careful. Nvidia is going to be affected by these tariffs a lot because one's going to depend on, we depend on them for semiconductors and factors like that. This is looking a little bit weaker. We might be retesting this 117 to 115 area, and we'll see if we bounce off that. Nvidia is trying to form a base here, so we'll see if we could hold support or not. But for the time being, we do favor downside a little bit more. For Tesla, we got this rejection. We're on a bit of a downtrend on Tesla. We were trying to break out, and so far Tesla's struggling to do that. So we had this yellow trend line of resistance. We tried to break past this on Friday. Instead of holding above, we got this rejection back down. Unless we reclaim about 405, I think this is favoring 400. If that doesn't hold us, we could be dipping all the way down towards like 390. So please be very careful, guys. Although Tesla is trying to hold above 400, there's a good chance it tries to retest that. If it doesn't hold, we could continue to fall back down towards 395 or so. So I'm seeing some weakness on Tesla. It might be looking for a small pullback, at least for the timing to start things off. We'll see how the data and other pieces of news affect us, but for now, there could be some downside because of these tariffs. Once again, it's affecting the entire market, and then that's leading to like a big shift in order flow, which is dragging Tesla a little bit lower. For Apple, we're looking a little bit weaker, especially because of these tariffs on China. Apple depends a lot on China. So the issue is so far there's a little bit of weakness right over here. This could fall a little bit more. We have to see if we can reclaim 237 to bounce. If not, this is going to be at risk of dipping all the way down towards 230 flat. So might be dipping to 230. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. So please be very careful. For a few more, I'm going to be kind of quick with the rest of these. We have Netflix trying to hold its key EMAs right here. I think it dips to about the 970 area. We'll see if we bounce off that to continue this uptrend. If not, we're going to be at risk of dipping closer to about that 950 area. For MSTR, although we're on a bit of a downtrend right here, we're kind of flat right here. We'll have to see if we could hold support right here at 333. If not, we could be dipping closer to about 325. If we reclaim 340, we could try to bounce, but I think this may favor downside for 330 or below. For Celsius, we're on a bit of a downtrend right now. We'll have to see if we can reclaim essentially 25. If not, we could be dipping back down towards 24 flat. For Supermicro, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We tried to break out here and got a big rejection. We need to reclaim 29.7. If not, we could continue to fall back down to 27.5. Palantir was trying to bounce. I think it's technically on a very, very nice uptrend, forming a cup. It might dip a little bit more to retest 80 flat before we see some buyers defend it, if not 77. So I anticipate 77 to 80 to be tested, and we'll see if we get a bounce or not. Rivian's on a bit of a downtrend, at least so far. I was trying to get a breakout from this wedge, but so far it does not look like it's ready. So if anything, we can even redraw this just like this and kind of expand this. It may just continue to downtrend in this wedge for the time being. May slowly make its way down towards the 12s before we see a breakout, so give it some time. So far, I got a big rejection. I was trying to break out, only to reject back down. We need to try to get back above 16.25 to bounce. If not, we could be dumping to about 15 flat. So it might be a dip towards 15. For AMD, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We need to try to get back above 16 flat. Otherwise, we're going to likely fill this gap back down to about 114. So please keep that in mind. ARM might be dipping towards 155, then 152.5, and we'll see if buyers defend it. So please be careful. Coin is dipping with Bitcoin, might be retesting 286. If we don't hold that, we're going to be dipping to about 280 flat. So watch to see a little bit more downside. Amazon has a double top here. We'll have to see if we can hold 235 or else we could be dipping back down towards 232. There's a double top here, so 232 could be our potential target. So we'll see if that ends up holding or not. For Meta, we could be dipping to about 676. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down towards the 652 area. So look for a dip to 676. If that doesn't hold us, we could be dipping more. So please keep that in mind. Microsoft's on a bit of a downtrend. We had earnings come out, which led to this big dip. We're looking for a test of about 412. If that does not hold us, we could be dipping closer to the lower 400s. I think it dips a little bit more, and we'll see if buyers defend it or not. Google pumped very, very nicely, but there is one issue, and I want to be a little bit honest about the gap right here. We'll be watching to see if we could hold 204. If it doesn't hold, I think we fill the gap to at least 202. Then we'll see if we bounce or not, but just keep that in mind. For GameStop, we look a little bearish on the 4-hour time frame and the daily. This might be dipping closer to about 25 flat, so just be careful, guys. Looking at others out there, we also happen to have AMC on a bit of a downtrend. It could be dipping closer to 3. I'm going to skip over DJT. Actually, never mind. DJT might be kind of flat here. It's just trading sideways here. It could just continue to consolidate around 31 flat. Not really doing a whole lot. I do see an issue. We have the VIX. This could start to break out. If we could hold above 16.68, this may start pushing for the 18s, so just be careful. The 10-year is pushing, and so is the dollar, so we'll have to see how things end up going with this. So please be very mindful, at least moving forward. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a good rest of your day, guys. I really appreciate you guys for your attention, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one. Be ready, guys. The dollar is trying to push here, which is not the best for the markets, and we have to be very patient, at least nonetheless. Thank you for listening, and peace out.